All right. We got the white pieces again. I'm going to hit another E4 game, but let me know what we should play. What are you guys feeling? E4, E5. King's Gambit. All right. It's a, obscure enough opening. You don't see the King's Gambit too often. It's definitely an opening that has a reputation for not being great. Right? That's kind of the thing. But that reputation, just so you know, is at the very high levels. At 800, the King's Gambit is amazing. You can't confuse the reputations that openings get at higher levels for their playability overall. There are a lot of things, like the French has a really bad reputation. Oh, bad opening, But the French is great up to a certain level, and that level is very high. The ceiling is very high, I think. So, we're playing the King's Gambit here. Not accepted, no d6, but knight c6. So first of all, if we take and the knight takes back, we might be okay there. But if we take, there's going to exist the move queen h4 check. And if we play g3 or if you play king e2, the move will be queen e4. So after this move, you will actually lose on the spot. Like the game will be over. You can just resign. You're going to lose at minimum a rook. Could be worse as well. So we're certainly not going to take. After you play this, the normal next step is kind of to play knight f3. And the reason being that you want to control the h4 square. So knight c6, I'm probably going to be playing knight f3. The only other move I would think of is maybe knight c3, but knight f3 is way too normal. This is the move you'll almost always want to play as your next move in the King's Gambit. So we played knight f3. Now we see capture. So this is essentially transposing to e4, e5, f4 takes, knight f3, knight c6. Right? Transposing. As soon as this happens, you want to play d4. The only reason you don't play d4 is because queen h4 is such a killer check. So knight f3 is mandatory in this opening to stop queen there. But then you want to play this because your follow-up is like, oh, then the pawn can be captured, right? Bishop takes on f4. Right, then the pawn can move forward, challenge the pieces in black's position. So I like d4 here. I'm thinking about other possible moves, and the only other one that really catches my eye is the move bishop c4. And the reason that I suggest or mention bishop c4 is actually because of the move d5. Sometimes d5 can be a little bit annoying. So bishop c4 is like stops d5. That's kind of nice. So bishop c4, let's say knight f6. Knight f6. If knight c3, knight takes e4, I think we win with... I guess I don't know if that's winning. Looks okay. Queen e2. Huh. Yeah, bishop c4 kind of feels funky here. I mean, d4 looks nice and normal. But I tell you, if I could play this and get castled, I think I'd be fairly happy. What I would love to do in a perfect world is play this d3 castle, take there, and we just have an amazing position. But I'm gonna have a think here. I think I'm gonna play d4. d5, I think I will take. So, taking a while to decide how we're gonna play the opening here. I was between bishop c4 and d4. Ultimately, I'll choose what I think is the more logical move. Makes a basic threat and takes the center. Why not? All right, so this is the move that I was talking about. I think we just go ahead and take it and try to draw the queen out. This is the thing that makes the most sense to me. Like, e5 is playable, but there's all sorts of moves like g5, so we're definitely going to take this. e5, I think, is a little bit too slow. And even after I play e5 and I win this pawn, I'm still not sure I like my position. So here, I suppose knight c3 looks normal. And let's play knight c3. Queen e6 is really speculative, I would say. Yeah, so this should be the move pretty much every time. Yeah, c4 is possible in that position, but I'm going off the instincts that I have from, what's that opening? It's like from the c3 Sicilian. It's like these Alpin positions where black plays d5, queen takes d5. And normally playing c4 when black can give a check is like not supposed to be good, just as a rule. So I'm just kind of following the same principle there. Not sure if that makes sense or not. Bishop b4, pinning, so obviously we don't have this threat anymore. Bishop takes f4, I would guess is a decent move. Queen e4 can be met by queen e2. Position seems okay. Bishop f4. Let's say knight f6. Normal move. Bishop d3. Castle. Castle. That looks fine. I think I'll probably just play this. This doesn't look like the end of the world because there'll be a queen trade forced here. Basically, I didn't want black to have a moment to play maybe pawn to g5 and consider holding on to that pawn. At some point, got to take the material back. It's actually really annoying if black plays this successfully because then your bishop from here, it can't even develop. Like, e3 is covered, the f4 pawn is protected. c7 is being hit. I would call that like a baby threat. Not really a threat. Bishop takes pawn on c7 it's the kind of threat where you want your opponent to go like that to defend it. Because honestly, I'm not sure that I would take it. But if he thinks I would, that's great. That's great. Bishop g4 kind of looks like a good move because, you know, maybe there's an idea to win the d4 pawn here. So I'm definitely I'm definitely thinking bishop g4 is very logical here. So if bishop e2, taking is definitely nothing because that might even lose a queen. But if then like knight e7 or something, or knight f6, and we castle, bishop takes, queen takes d4, bishop b7, like I'm kind of wondering what's actually happening there. Seems like it could be okay. I feel like bishop e2 is just like a calm move. Bishop e2, he might long castle. And then if bishop takes, we just take the queen. So I think by castling, this threat is enough to maybe force bishop takes, which is nice. So I want to get castled as soon as possible. So I think this is a nice, easy move to make. So no matter really what he does, the fact of the matter is I can castle. And if the bishop takes here, I can actually just take the queen because I'm not pinned anymore. So simply by castling, I almost forced this move to happen, I think. Because this threat becomes immediate. So it's not completely by force, but it definitely looks plausible. It looks equalish. You're not sure who's better here. Well, I think that is much in part due to my opponent playing a really good game. But the other part is the fact that the King's Gambit sucks. You know? Like, if someone knows what they're doing against the King's Gambit, I don't think it's a very rewarding opening to play. And I think my opponent has played really well so far. At least up till this point. So the next couple moves are probably important, but everything that Black's done so far has made a lot of sense, right? I was talking about after d4 that I suspected d5 was good, and it was played. I suspect bishop b4 was the best move, and it was played. Here, I also suspect that move is the best move, and it was played. So this looks like a fairly successful opening so far for my opponent, I would say. What was I going to do here? I was going to castle, right? Because then I feel like this threat is it's serious. It starts to exist. Let's just do it. Yeah, takes, but somehow I feel that's not going to happen. We'll wait and see where he decides to put the pieces here. But castling is, to me, the only move that makes sense. Get out of the pin, right? Threaten the queen, and if the bishop takes, then our pawn then supports the center, so it's kind of a nice transaction. And we have some follow-up moves here, like, yeah, I mean, it's really unfortunate. This move, I'll be honest, for a second, I also overlooked that his queen was hanging, because I was calculating a line where bishop takes f3 was played, and I said my initial calculation was bishop f3, bishop takes, I was calculating all this. So even I forgot for a sec that by castling that the queen was hanging. So I feel bad. I think he played a good opening, as I was just saying. Like, all his moves seem to make sense, and his next move is rook to e8. But he's just committed the ultimate blunder, which is losing the entire queen. And now it's actually relatively easy. So let's play this so that we don't lose sight of that square. Yeah, that's right. He's immediately captured back. He knows what he's doing. My opponent was right, though. You know, at the beginning of the game, he wrote this. I think he knew. A Pepe avatar. I'm about to get destroyed. I mean, you're not wrong. Rook e8 feels bad because I think this guy's moves are really quite decent. I think I'm gonna go for this. This looks like a really solid move. I'm not interested in trading and having the knight show up. So if he took, I'd be happy to take with the queen and get out of knight e3. But now my bishop is safe. It's covering that square. Let's connect these. Okay, this bishop should probably move here. 95 is no good. Yeah. So bishop needs to move. Bishop c4, definitely tempting. Either bishop c4 or bishop d3. This is protected. Bishop c4 does look kind of nice. I might do this first. Knight e3 I'm very happy about because we trade. That's always a good thing. And if knight b6, although it looks like I'm the one gaining or losing time, first of all, I could take on f7 perhaps, but also I'd be more than happy to just drop my bishop back to d3. And do I think his knight is better on this square or that square? I think it's better on that square. So for me to see it go there would be nice. No bishop b5. Well, in my opinion, bishop c4 is the move that gains the most time because it literally attacks a piece. And any kind of trades I'd be happy to see. Whereas bishop b5 doesn't actually come with a threat. And it's not clear to me that I'm interested in giving up my bishop for knight. It just kind of gives my opponent control of the light squares unnecessarily. Now, as for this move, I suspect bishop takes f7 is actually the correct move here. I'm not really sure if I'm going to play it. I think I'm going to keep it much more simple than that. I'm going to play bishop g5 and just take. I like this a lot more than being ultra greedy with bishop f7. So that's what I'm finna do. Yeah, I am pinned here. It sucks. But I also know that it's defended twice and it cannot be attacked more. Like 95 is playable, but a little much. A little much. I'm up so much material here as well that I can kind of do whatever I want. So bishop g5 pins the knight, but also I wouldn't mind necessarily giving up this bishop for the knight. I've got dark square pawns, so I really want to hang on to my light squared bishop or trade it for that guy. I wouldn't really like to do that trade, but this trade, I'm okay with that. Yeah, I think because I don't need to take this raid away, I think I might hang on for a sec. Just thinking about him using the G file, but maybe it's nothing. We want to trade pieces here. That's what we want to do. So how can we trade pieces? That's what I want to know. How can we trade pieces? I think what I'm going to do as my plan is I'm going to take... I'm going to go queen here. And yeah, this is hanging, but the reason I don't really care for this is the rook moves, and what do? Just go back? I'm not blown away by that. What I want to do is I want to play bishop here and trade that. If I can trade that bishop, I think the rest of his game just doesn't exist. So yeah, again, bishop f7, I'm actually going to not take and go here. Even though I'm sure this is the best move. I like my little plan here. Also because rook e1 is coming. Which will be a basic exchange of rooks down the e file. I'm also looking at that move. That doesn't look too good. By returning here, I also intend a4 on the next turn, which looks very, very nasty to deal with. I mean, yeah, it's just a blunder. It's just a big blunder. But honestly, instead of taking it, I think this move is actually better. This was my intention on the previous turn. So of course we could take it, but I'm going to start by doing this because it trades the pieces. And then I can take that. Interesting decision. I can take whichever piece I want. Technically, this one is better to take. So I think we'll make that choice, but you're not making a mistake taking on c5. Not at all. A move that looks particularly nasty to deal with for him on the next turn is b4 if he played bishop b6, but he doesn't. He goes bishop takes. I'm going to take with the knight just because I want to provoke more trades. If you take with a pawn, that knight doesn't have to capture. And yeah, the material here, as you can see, is just an extra queen and bishop. So that type of advantage should be overwhelming. Check looks really good. Rook takes f6 and rook c1 all look good, but very hard to say no to this this check. Queen c6 next. Oh, well, that's very friendly because now we just take it, and queen b7 is not stoppable. I'll tell him GG. Because I thought it was. I thought it was well played. So, yeah, the whole point of the King's Gambit is like, I mean, if you look at it with an engine, it's not very satisfying because you just start with a not amazing evaluation. So knight c6, knight f3 takes on f4, and the reason that I ended up not deciding on bishop c4 was number one, I thought maybe knight f6 and d5 anyway. But number two, my opponent can also just defend f4 with g5. And it can sometimes be a hard fight, a long struggle to get your pawn back if you're going to get it back. So I think d4 was the correct decision. Obviously, g5 can still happen. But as I pointed out during the game, I thought that d5 was at least annoying here because it means that the knight can't really use that square. And if you play your knight back to b8, queen d5 hits the rook, and there's actually no way to save your pawn, which looks weird, or sounds weird to say. But no matter what you put on f6, you'll lose that pawn. Or you'll lose the rook. So d5 we take, the queen takes back, and now, I have to be honest, and I was pretty honest when I was playing the game. I don't know if c4 or knight c3 is the move here, but I was using just a theme that I'm familiar with for when to play c4, and I used it to judge this position. So what I'm talking about is in the c3 Sicilian, you know, people play this d5 line, and you go like whatever it is, knight f3, like d4, I don't know, knight c6. And the only thing I know about this is that white needs to play bishop e2 so that there's no check. And then like c4 now is a threat because then the queen doesn't have a check to give us and we'll play like c4 d5. So I don't know if that's enough judgment to go off of for our game, but I was using the same principle to decide, like, I mean, basically, am I going to play the move bishop e2? I didn't think bishop e2 was enough here because I was concerned about g5. So to me, I have a couple options. I can either take this pawn right away, and then I don't have to worry about g5. Or I can make a move that attacks the queen, and that's either knight c3 or c4. And if I don't take the pawn right away and I attack the queen with c4, I want to be able to take the pawn next. If I play c4, what I didn't like was like, oh, maybe I can get checked here in a number of different places, and then black can hang on to this pawn. And I didn't want to allow that. So I thought, okay, we'll attack the queen. Where can the queen go that's actually a check? Well, it's here, but after bishop e2, I'm hitting the pawn, I'm threatening d5, so I know that the only way for black to get out of this is maybe to play like queen here to guard the pawn again. But I'm not concerned about a position where I'm getting like a bunch of free tempi and the queen's moving over and over. So that didn't seem like a problem. Bishop b4, and I decided to just take this pawn just to even up the material. This is mainly because I didn't really know what was going on after g5. So I think the computer kind of likes bishop d3, but I wasn't really sure what was happening here. I guess it involves queen e2 or just castling and saying, okay, like, this is too crazy. You can't play like this. White has just too many pieces ready to attack. Yeah, I guess this is just too much. But I was kind of like, let's even things up. Like, I don't want to be just down material. And I knew queen e4, I had queen e2, which looked like a good endgame for me. So I thought this was okay. Bishop g4, and as I said, you know, what's the best move here? Bishop g4. This is why I was saying I think my opponent is playing well. Like, I really do. So he castles, and I thought castling was a great move. As it turns out, maybe more precision was needed, but I really thought this was okay. But obviously, he has to take here. And if he had played knight f6 now, I like my position. I think I'm better, but I'm not sure that I'm, you know, not crushing. It's not game over, not even close. So I thought there would be a whole game to still play, and I was looking forward to it. Because I thought, as I said, that my opponent was playing quite well. But what I will say about the opening in general is I don't think the King's Gambit is like, for example, openings that have like meh reputations. I hope you guys have been paying attention. If you guys have watched a lot of the Slowbrah series so far, do you remember what like some of the openings were where I got the least advantage, or I thought my opponents played the best, or I was like the most impressed? If you think back to what openings they were, the games that stand out to me are this one, so King's Gambit. The other one that stands out was the Benoni. There was like a 700 rocking some insane Benoni prep against me. And it's like any opening where a 700 can get like a fine or playable position is... I think it's no surprise that it's against the suspect openings that that's occurring. I'll put it that way. I think that's the best way to say it.